Welcome to the Vocal Lab Podcast with your hosts, Shelby Rollins and Jason Catrone, bringing you the best from the music industry. Get ready for first-class conversations packed with exclusive techniques and transformative insights, all designed to help you reach your top note. Welcome to today's episode of the Vocal Lab Podcast.
Yes, welcome.
Welcome. We're always glad you guys are here listening along to our antics, our prescriptions of great vocals, and our stories of tells along the music business ways, shall we say.
I feel very honored that people are actual, regular listeners.
Yeah, me too.
Because I'll have people tell me.
Same.
That they listen to every episode and that they really look forward to it. I'm like, oh my gosh, really?
Tell
your friends.
It's really crazy. I've had people be like, and even still today, I mean, obviously not everyone knows about it. They should, but
I know, not everybody.
That's the life of growing something new, but
Celine doesn't know yet that we are here ready for her.
Yeah,
but
one day. No, it's just always kind of, people love podcasts.
I do.
And they get excited about you telling them every time I've mentioned I have a podcast. Oh, you have a podcast?
I know.
It's like, what is this
like
magic
this,
dust of a podcast that people are like,
Seems
I know.
Pretty legitimizing.
It's the New Day book.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's like I have a book.
Book was always the authenticating stamp on anyone. It still is. But podcast has joined that little, whatever it is. And it's kind of funny
so
how
thanks
we
for
do
being
that.
here,
But
guys.
yeah. All that to say, thank you.
Did anything on my teeth?
No.
Because I just ate. I ate right before we started. And, you got to do that thing where you make sure.
Make sure you don't have something.
Because this is on video.
Toothies.
So.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, we stream this over on YouTube on the Vocal Lab Collective channel. So go watch us as well as listen to us and leave nice comments because you can comment there.
Yep.
Shelby, today we're going to do some more Get to Know the Coach. Are you nervous?
Who, me?
Yeah, you. Are you nervous?
No.
Okay, you shouldn't be. We'll make it fun and painless.
I tried to make it painful for you.
I mean, when I did mine, you came out of the gate with like a deep question of
Let's just get right in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you got for me?
Well, I'm trying to decide, do I start serious? Do I start playful and fun? Do I just throw a curveball? Or do I don't know, No. I think I start with most people of those who follow along, but we have people listening today who haven't. Like, just kind of in a snapshot real quickly, like, give us your A to Z timeline of you as an artist, a musician. Like, coaching came secondary. You grew up wanting to be an artist, and you did that for a while. So let the peoples know.
Just the little quick background.
Yeah.
Cliff's notes.
Yeah. Grew
up in musical parents. My brother also grew up just like me, singing, playing instruments. Was a more skilled player than me. My giftings were a little bit heavier in singing. So, I mean, I still played and was trained, but I grew up in piano lessons. I played clarinet. I played guitar. I took voice lessons, all the different things. I was in choirs and stuff. And I started eventually to, as the older I got, narrow it more into singing focused music rather than all, instruments and playing things, or at least combining the singing and the playing. And I got into musical theater. I was a theater major in college. I went to Florida State, majored in theater. After I graduated, I went and moved to New York City, where I lived for almost 5 years. And my goal in moving to New York, a lot of people thought after I graduated with a theater degree that I was going to go try Broadway. And I figured out about halfway through college that I was not going to do that. I was like, I like this, but I really just want to sing. I got into theater because I liked singing, and it was just another opportunity to sing. And so it was just a new fun application. Once I got more heavy into the acting side, even though it helped me become a much better actor, I ultimately decided that my joy came more from singing than acting. And so when I moved to New York, it was under the purpose of being a singer-songwriter in the pop music world. I grew up listening to some of my influences for my songwriting was like Sarah McLachlan, Fiona Apple, Sarah Bareilles, artists like that who were in my headphones when I was on the subway all the time. listening to those people. And Tori Kelly was a big one. Not Tori Kelly, sorry.
I'm like, wait.
That was before her time. Tori Amos.
Tori Amos.
Yes. And Patty Griffin, singers and songwriters like that were some of my favorites. Jonathan Brooke.
Wow, you could have been a lesbian.
You know what was funny? I got really into the like kind of angry, angsty, emo girl music
It was
trend.
so good.
It really was.
Right? That time frame
Yeah.
of music and those women.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And somebody
Still to this day when those songs comes on, I'm like,
Oh,
oh,
I know.
it's so good.
I know. Somebody tipped me off to the Indigo Girls kind of right as I was somewhat exiting that phase of music in my life. And I remember thinking, oh man, I'm about to go hard in the paint here. Like, this is good. But it wasn't like I had to leave it. It wasn't that. It was just like my life was just going somewhat in a different direction creatively. It was the sort of the tail end of my interest in that super heavily in
Yeah,
that
sure.
genre. But at any rate, that was who I was listening to. That was the kind of songs
But
that I was
helped
writing.
make you a great singer.
Yeah.
Those are great vocals in that
Yeah, for sure.
time frame.
And they were vocals that were more built around the artistry than the technique.
Yeah.
And at that point in my life, I did not have the greatest technique. And so I for sure built an artistry out of what I was listening to from those singers. I like to tell people I built my artistry around my lack of ability, which I say this is not a great idea, by the way.
Right.
And that's why technique matters and is helpful, is that then you can sing what you really want to sing versus what you can just kind of have to get away with your limiting factors. So, but I'm not despising that phase of my career and my life, but I, lived in New York and I was a struggling artist and poor, and New York is expensive, and had 4 or 5 part-time jobs and just attempting to try to make bills and make ends meet. But I, somewhere along that journey in New York, because I was performing, I would sing at different venues in the Lower East Side, my little tiny pocket of songs that I had, that I was trying to always write more. But this was also before the days of co-writing. And that was not a big thing in New York yet, because this was like early 2000s. And
Before streaming.
yeah,
Like this was
I had
like
a MySpace.
pound the pavement,
I had a MySpace.
sing your songs, sell a CD or two.
Yeah.
You're doing the thing.
And I had like a demo that I had
Yeah.
recorded of some of my songs and stuff.
Cool.
And I basically would just play wherever I could and then beg my friends to come to my shows. And that was my attempt at trying to be an artist back then.
Yeah.
And
That was me too, but I was always begging my friends' grandparents and parents to come because my friends would not come
because you're a crooner.
because the way I sing.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, we're bored with this. We're going to go to a movie. We'll see you after. Like, gee, thanks, guys.
So about 3/4 of the way through my time in New York-ish, maybe 2/3, I started teaching as just a side hustle. I've kind of talked about this on the podcast before.
Yeah, sure.
But so to sort of speed through that, since I've talked about it before, I met Brett Manning, who that's how we know each other. Got trained as an associate of his to be a vocal coach more officially. I was like certified, and then kind of pivoted my career path altogether into coaching. And met my husband there. We got married and moved to Nashville in 2010, shortly after we got married. And we've been here ever since. And I've literally my only job in Nashville, this is almost true, my only job almost, has been vocal coaching, aside from 3 months where I was answering phones and sweeping hair off the floor at a hair salon while I was waiting for my coaching contract to get drafted for the studio. I was bored and I was like, can I do something at this place? Like, I'll sweep hair off the floor. And I did for about 3 months.
Did you ever sweep any famous person's hair off the floor?
I don't think so.
Oh, that's
Dave
boring.
Barnes, I think, used to get his hair cut there. So probably his. Shout out Dave Barnes.
If you could have like kept a lock of Keith Urban's hair, that would have been.
I could have grown a new Keith, my very own.
You could have. Grow your
that's
own
my-
Keith. It's
my-
the new version of Chia Pets. You know what
That's
I found
the
out
Cliff
the other
Notes
day?
version
This,
of my life.
this total side trail. I didn't realize that the Chia Pet was chia seeds that we eat.
I didn't either, really.
Yes. I just thought, it's so playful. It's like a toy, and they sell it at Walmart
Yeah.
or Walgreens, anywhere. But no, that's chia seeds. We eat that now in pudding.
So basically, if you have chia seeds, if you're one of those people who eat chia seeds, and you have some at home, you
Just
can make
get you
your
a
own
Chia
chia
Pet.
pet.
Yeah.
That is an inexpensive Christmas gift, everybody.
Yes, it sure is. back to you though. So I'm curious, did you ever struggle with letting go of your artist badge? Let's call it a badge, because you were putting everything into this thing. You were the artist. You were going to do your thing.
Yeah.
Did you struggle letting go of that to put on a coaching badge? Did you see them separately?
Yeah,
Were they the same?
I did. Obviously, in New York, when you move to a city like that, whether it's New York, LA, Nashville, you're usually moving there with the agenda to pursue something pretty specifically in entertainment.
Yes, and you have
I did.
grand visions of explosive growth.
Oh yeah, I was like, I'm
And
going to be like
success.
Kelly Clarkson or something,
Right.
And I honestly felt called into that space. I didn't necessarily know exactly what that was going to look like, but I really did, and still honestly do.
Yeah.
When I was presented with the opportunity to certify as an associate for Brett, it was expensive,
Yeah.
as it should be. And it was the biggest investment I was going to I was at that point ever had to make into a career path. And I remember thinking, most jobs, you get the job and then they pay you, but here I have to give you a lot of money before, without a guarantee that I'm going to make money.
Yeah,
right?
sure. That was a big risk.
So I had to really think about that as I was 23, 24. And so even though I was teaching before then, it was inadequate. My training was inadequate to teach. So I knew I needed that if I wanted to teach. And I enjoyed teaching enough to entertain this idea of certifying to vocal coach professionally. And I remember being at the grocery store in Queens where I lived, a couple blocks from my apartment. And I can't remember if I was talking to my mom or somebody on the phone. And I remember it probably was. And I was like, this is the first sort of decision that I've had to make in a career as an adult where I have to really weigh this and go, is this really going to be something that I'm going to lean into for long enough for it to get a good ROI? And I knew that if I was going to invest, it was $6,000 or $9,000, whatever it was, to train, then in order for me to recoup that realistically, and it makes sense, I need to commit 2 to 3 years of my life to doing this. Okay. And in part that's because it was that long ago and things weren't less expensive. And then also because I didn't have a frame of reference for making a lot of money yet per year. So I was like, it might take me a couple of years to get that money back. Sure. And so I was like, I had to ask myself, can I commit to something that is not what I originally thought I was going to do? I never thought I was going to teach. Ever. It was never in my frame.
I never thought it at all. But again, the time that the time frame we came up in, it was still, I like to say it was still a little more methodic because it was write your song, make a record, press it into physical product, play some shows, sell them, make some more money, get a fee for this, try to get attention from a label, publisher, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Any kind of traction. That was kind of the model.
Yeah.
We didn't have social media and all these things at our disposal.
Yeah.
Right? So there was a little more formula to it in a way.
Which also made it harder.
Which made it harder
to achieve.
Right? That's interesting. It made it harder. Yeah. But it was also, it was more one track. Like, I'm going to do this. Yeah. Why would I coach? Why would I?
And you have to spend all of your energy into doing that, which you do, and you still do now. But
for sure.
But I would have. It seemed hard, and I had.
But we didn't have. Not to interrupt you, but I did. I always say that.
It's par for the course.
It's the politeness in me. We didn't have the ability to get a $5,000 brand deal from my social media.
No. Yeah.
While I'm trying to make this music,
right?
Even though I have, rock hard abs and I can,
right,
do protein bars.
Yeah,
sponsorships, right? Mm-hmm. Like all that. We didn't have that.
Right.
So it was harder.
It was like one way to really be successful and make money.
Yeah.
Was the more older traditional way before the dawn of things now. And I had been spending a lot of energy trying to do that while also just trying to make a living. And I had, like I said, multiple part-time jobs, full-time job at one point. and spending so much time working, not on music, just to survive in New York, that then when I did work on music, I also had no idea what I was doing in the music industry from the standpoint of how to even be successful back then. I was not good at networking. I didn't like it. I didn't like what felt very slimy, like pushing my CD and be like, hey, listen to my demo. I didn't like it. I didn't like selling myself. And I also had a terrible lens for that concept. I actually have a very different lens for that now. I've said before, I think I would be more successful if I were pursuing an artist career now than I was in my 20s because I know better how to do it and I have a better mindset
Yeah,
around
for
it.
sure.
But in terms of this concept of like, I had to really think about, can I commit to this? This was like a big career shift in my agenda. Do I like this enough to commit a couple years of my full-time energy into this instead of into music? And I was a little frustrated with the artist stuff. So there was that tick in the, cons column for that. But I also didn't know fully what I was going to get into when it came to coaching. I liked it enough to be kind of interested in entertaining this, but I wasn't sure if I put that much of myself into it, if I would love it truly. So it felt risky. Honestly, I prayed about it, talked to my family, and to Tanner, who actually we were just dating at the time, and decided to go for it. I decided to, yes, I can commit to 3 years of just doing that. And I don't have to go any further than that if I don't want to. And of course, that was, 16 years ago or something like that, if I'm doing the math correctly, somewhere close to that, give or take a year. And I'm still doing it. But the question that you originally asked was it hard to think of myself or take the artist mind, thing off and put the coach thing on? And like I said, I was in the grocery store where that question was raised in my mind of, could I commit a couple years to this? And that was sort of where I made the decision to do it. And I just remember literally grocery shopping in Queens. It's funny that I have that memory. I think at the time I didn't assume that I would not really return to the artist career path. I didn't know, but I was okay with trying something different for a season. And through the years of coaching, I've still continued to sing in front of people.
Yeah,
right?
totally.
However, as becoming a mom has been such a shift in what the landscape of my day-to-day and my more meta, macro scale look of a career looks like. Because I'm not going to go on tour. You know what I mean? Even if somebody was like, I want to sign you to a label and we've got all these plans, like, I'm not going to go on tour. My kids are little.
Yeah.
Like, I could never do that. And I see artists that actually take their kids on the road with them.
Sure.
Johnny Swim. So I've worked with them for a long time, and that's like their family gig.
Yeah,
They're like
totally.
almost like the Partridge Family at this point, except the kids are not quite old enough to be on stage with them, but they go on the road.
Sure.
They bring extended family members to help them with the kids. And I love that because they have cultivated that into the DNA of their family fabric.
Sure.
But like Tanner's not a musician by trade, and so I can't take them all with me. You know what I'm saying? It's just, it looks different. And so there has always been a grieving in me that I'm not doing more on the artist side. And I'm always thinking about that, even present day, of how to make that more intentional. And to be honest, because I've built a brand, or started to, in a business, there's a lot of people that I work with regularly that I train, and there's things that I have built into my day, weekly expectations of my job, of deliverables that I have to bring to the world, that it's hard for me to sometimes even see how that can be incorporated. And I do love what I do, right? It's not like regret. It's more of a need inside of me to sing because I love it, not because I need something from it. right? I want to experience the joy of it. That's why I teach people all the time. And honestly, it's something I talk about even more recently all the time to people is like, you have to do this for the joy. If you are doing it for any other reason, you will burn out.
Yeah, for sure.
And joy is also like a huge key component to building a healthy voice and technique and stuff like that. I just deeply believe that. And so for me, I think it's how can I bring singing just even for myself, like just me and the Lord, and go, I don't need an outcome. Right? I don't need an outcome. I just want to experience the joy of it. And that actually is really pure and emotional, like, because there always used to be a ego tied outcome to singing, as much as I didn't want there to be. And I do think that there needed to be enough personal growth for the detachment of that. Like, I don't need an outcome of this. Do you know what I mean?
No, totally. And you've unwrapped a lot of things there, but to point to specifically, first being you and I as coaches, the coaching part of what we do, one of the big things we're always trying to help our artists with is managing the ego.
Right.
Because it's where all the problems come in. Right? When the ego takes over or gets too in control of what we're doing,
right.
That's where you'll pick up some strain, or you'll pick up a big head, an inflated view of self, or the list goes on. So it is a big part of what we do as a coach, right? High level coaching, let's say that.
Yeah.
To help manage the artist's ego, bringing balance into that part of their life. We have to do that in our own right as well.
Right.
Not just as people, but as coaches, as artists. Because that's another thing I don't think I would have been a coach had I not been sitting under Brett. Obviously I wouldn't, because he encouraged me to do it, but one of the reasons I said yes to coaching was because I saw a clear avenue to make another income source in my realm of music and artistry.
Yeah, sure.
Right? And he was doing it at a high level. And I'm like, well, if he can do that and make this kind of money, I can do that too.
Yeah. Right?
And so in the realm of quote unquote celebrity vocal coaching or high level coaching, there's a lot of money to be made in that. A lot more than even a lot of the artists we work with. And so that enticed me on one side. But also, to your point, I was trying to manage that as well. It's why I still continue to do music and do shows and express that side of me, but not enough as I would love to, for sure. I'm like you in that. But this is my point two. By and large, that's true of every artist, because they're either having to, again, work another job, whether it's waiting tables or a full-time job doing something else, or a side hustle they have.
Or even the business of music, even if they're doing it and they have a
signed
label.
Artists. They're having to spend the majority of the time. We live in a space now which is really interesting. The art of singing, the act of doing it in a live show, is one of the least things they do.
Yeah,
they're making silly videos.
Yep.
They're going to meetings. They're having to do PR. They're, building the catalog, writing, things like that. But the actual art that we all fall in love with, which is singing the song, is the thing we actually get to do the least, unless you become like, I think probably people who aren't quite into that equation are theater singers. If you're on Broadway, you're doing 8 shows a week, and you're probably wishing like, oh, I wish I could just not do 8 shows a week. A lot of them, right? I mean, that's a lot.
Yeah.
So it's, again, in finding that balance, and that's really interesting. But I think every artist starts out wanting to just be, this is all I do. But what we all realize is like, that really isn't possible, except for the top 0.5%. You take, but even then you take like Taylor Swift. Yes, she by and large is just an artist who writes and sings songs. But the amount of stuff she has to do in a day to maintain the billion-dollar empire is way more than just being a girl who hits that stage and does a tour.
Yeah.
She runs an entire corporation.
Right.
And so I think one thing cool for me going through this whole process and growing through it is like getting comfortable and accepting like, wow, I am an artist, I am a singer, but I do all these other things now. Yeah. And that's fun.
You talked about that when we were interviewing you, and you said kind of how coaching felt like this door opening into more opportunities of expression of what you were hoping to do anyway, instead of a limiting factor of now all I do is coach. And I actually feel like I can learn a lot from your perspective on that, because I can tend to be a bit more, I don't want to say focused, because that sounds like you're not focused.
Well,
But
I
we're
mean,
like-
many people who know us would say you're right on both those points.
But I will say that when I do something, I do largely do it like all of me. Like I put a lot of me into it.
You
And
do.
so when I make a decision, I'm all in. And Tanner will tell you this, like I'll take a long time to make a decision, especially a big one. And he's real quick to make decisions.
Yeah.
And we balance each other out in this way. But I will take a while. And it's because I'm really weighing options.
Sure.
I'm really trying to consider what is the right thing for me to do or whatever.
And you're going to
But
commit.
then when I do, I am committed. And good luck trying to convince me otherwise. And so when I leaned into coaching, I think I subconsciously, not really aware of this, did shut off sort of a focus of artistry.
That's fair.
Because I wanted to commit to the thing that I was doing. I don't regret this because I love coaching, right? I wouldn't have still been doing it this long if I didn't love it.
Totally.
There's something that makes me emotional, like that I feel. I told Tanner recently, I was like, the best stuff that I do, because I know I'm really, you do too. I am good at my job.
Yeah.
And when I say good, I mean I am really
good
at what I do.
Really good.
And I can say that very confidently.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say that about every sphere of my life.
No.
But I am an expert in my field.
Yeah.
You and I both feel this way about what
Yeah.
we do. I said to him, I give out my absolute best stuff.
Every day.
I am my best in one-on-one, like one-on-one coaching.
Yeah.
And
same.
and it's sometimes frustrating to me because it's hard to scale the one-on-one, right? And so
But in
that was
that
actually the
one-on-
context of our conversation. But I was like, that stuff is, and I think the reason why I even fell in love with coaching, not even knowing that this was my why when I started, because it evolved over the course of my development and my training, that there was a point in my certification process where I remember having, might have even been after, but early on in coaching, where I remember I had to sing something at a conference. It was actually a really easy song, but I made it so hard. And I was so frustrated because I was like, this is not technically a difficult song. Why does this feel so difficult? And I had this revelation finally in the process of having to sing it a million times where I was like, oh, it's because I'm trying so hard. I'm just trying to sing good instead of communicating and just talking.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Sure.
I had an artistic revelation in that, not just a technical revelation of how I have to, in my, you can feel songs, I tell this to people a lot. You can feel really connected to your song internally, especially when you write the song yourself, right? A deep emotional connection to it, but externalizing your connection to the audience is an entirely different thing. It's a whole nother level of communication in performance. And Brett actually was the trigger for this for me. One session, I had this song I had written that I was bringing into a lesson for him to help me with. And I was real excited. I was like, this is the best song I've ever written. Like, I was stoked about it. And started playing the song, and he stopped me probably before I even got to the good part, And he very nicely said, these were not his words, but he very nicely said, I don't believe you. And I was like, what? I lived this. I believe this deeply. This was like one of the reasons it was the best song I ever wrote was because it was on very real life things, and I didn't get it. It took me some time. I had to really sit with that for the longest time. And he was like, go home and cry about this again. And I was like, I don't want to.
He's like, punch you in the face.
He's like, you need to go home and get real
No, he
connected
probably
with-
got you in a headlock
He
and
probably
did some
did.
jujitsu.
No. And so he triggered this in me. We know Brett loves jiu-jitsu.
God.
But I finally got it. I was like, me connecting to the song is different from helping you connect to the song that I'm, like me externalizing that connection to my audience. And I had to learn that. And that's through extreme vulnerability, ultimately. But in that discovery, I was like, oh my gosh, and how that connected to the other story of singing that song on stage that was not hard, but I made it so clunky, was that I had to bring these two things together and find my most authentic sound. And at the core of that, I didn't like my voice. And every time I talk about this, I'll cry. Freaking cry. Because as much as I loved singing, I didn't like my own voice. And that is so many singers. And I often ask this to artists because I can spot it. Because I lived it. I can see it in other people. And I ask the question a lot. And I'm not trying to make other people cry, but I'm like, tell me what you love about your own voice. And they're always like, oh, I don't know. And nobody likes to answer this question. A lot of people struggle to answer this question.
They do, they really do.
Because they don't love their voice. And that's actually one of the reasons they come to us.
Or they've just never even thought about it or how to answer it even, right?
And subconsciously, I think that is why they come. Maybe if I got lessons, I'd be better, and then I'd like it more, and then I'd be more confident and all of that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's really loaded. And I realized that one of my whys in coaching that I love doing it so much is I really want people to love the voice that they have and not wish it was something else, because I did. I wished it was something else. And I tried and I tried and I tried. I think that was one of the reasons that I didn't have a lot of success in the years of pursuing artistry.
For sure,
is because of that. There was self-sabotage built into that. There was things that were under the current. Like I said, I didn't like selling myself in marketing, and like it felt sleazy. And that's ultimately because I didn't believe in myself enough, right? Because I tell my coaches that I train this a lot. Like, if you believe that you have something that you can help people with, and obviously we feel that vocal coaching is so much more than just making somebody sing better. It is such a deeper thing in the soul.
Deep.
And we do it because we know that there's stuff that's unlocked in people's lives, not just their voice. And if you feel this way, that you're put here to serve your audience, and yet you're not showing up online and talking about it, and you're not actually trying to build, tell the world what you do. You're here because you want to build a bigger, better, successful business, but you're not telling anybody about it. That is selfish. It's ego. You better shine your light, because it's about giving to other people.
It's true. That's so true.
And so if you're not doing that, and that's singing, opening your mouth and singing, it's about giving something to others, right? If coaching is it, then it's about helping people be better so that they can shine their light ultimately. And so if you're not, out of fear, that is ego. That is tied to ego.
It is, and that's why you need to get help.
It's why you got to do such deep work.
Because again, regardless of what you're doing, it really is managing the ego. Finding true love of self, and an ability to stand confidently in who you are, so you can, at the fullest, enjoy your gift. Which for us, as we're talking, is singing, which is meant to be a gift to give away.
Right.
That is the process. And if there's a disconnect in any of that, you need to dig deep and get help with someone who can walk you through that, like you or I can, right? And so that's a beautiful story here in your journey, and the tenderness of it and the authenticity of it, and how through that now you are a high-level coach that helps so many people around the world, and artists that we listen to on the radio and on TV, and through your struggle, you're now able to help them. Like it's just really, it's the coolest thing. And to kind of put a cap on all that we're talking about on this side of it, of your story, is that it's fun now to see that coaching is in its own heyday. Everyone's being a coach since COVID.
In every
not just
sphere
vocal coaching,
industry.
everything. It's coaching. I guarantee you, if I were the chancellor or president of any major university in this country right now, especially the lower universities, I would be real scared.
Exactly. I knew you were going to say that.
This next generation is not going to go to college like they have been. And so
it's already dwindling.
It is. And so people, I saw just this past week, TSU, a very predominant black school here in Nashville.
It's HBCU.
Yeah, that their enrollment's less than 50% for next year. That's not good.
That's wild.
So
Yeah.
what it is
That's
good
why I
for
think
is like
coaching is
people
having
like us.
a
It's
heyday.
we're having a heyday.
Yeah.
And we're in a space now that people, they see everyone doing a little bit of everything. So
Right.
you don't have to be channeled of just being the artist badge. But
Yeah.
in that whole process, I think it's even more beautiful to take off the badges and just love yourself and be you.
And just
And this,
exist.
what am I going to do today? Just exist, right?
Right. Yeah.
That's my thoughts on it. You said loaded, and I don't know why I want to ask this. Loaded weapon or loaded baked potato?
In what context?
That's
like
just
if the
throwing it out
world is
there.
ending, do I want a
I don't
loaded
know. You
weapon
get
or a
one
loaded
choice.
baked potato?
You just get a choice right now.
Well, this also feels immediately political.
Nope, no politics in it.
A
This
loaded
is just
weapon.
okay.
Loaded weapon.
Okay.
I don't eat a lot of baked potatoes though.
I love baked potatoes. I just don't like them loaded. I just want a little butter, a little sour cream. But actually, instead of sour cream,
A
you know
lot
what?
of butter.
You know what I do? Yeah, butter for sure.
I love butter.
Put you a dollop of cottage cheese on there.
I like cottage cheese.
Way healthier than a sour cream. But the same.
I would
the
probably
same
sub Greek yogurt for the
satisfying,
sour cream.
savory moment. Yeah, you could do either way.
Yeah. Give me another one of those. I like that.
Poop your pants or pee your pants. And second part of that, have you ever?
Probably pee my pants and probably a little bit, yes, because I've had 3 kids, okay? Real talk. It's harder to jump on a trampoline, guys.
I've always heard like pregnant women will pee their pants a little bit at times because everything's pushing.
Yes. You have way less control.
I've definitely done both, and it's not fun. Carlos did last week, but you know, I think guys do it more than girls, don't you, Carlos?
I literally heard a friend tell a story.
Never?
Never?
What? That's bizarre.
I heard a friend tell a story just last night that her girlfriend from college, or like friend, they do like a trip every year, and she pooped the bed while they were on their trip. So I don't know if it's more predominantly a guy thing.
Maybe not. One time I was at T-Mobile in Green Hills. I'll never forget this either. This is when I was in college.
You have a lot of fun stories from college.
I'm very observant of things. And there was this gentleman, he was a little older, not super old, but he was in line in front of me. I was sitting with my waiting to be called to go up. And I remember he had on these colorful, big, like baggy shorts. And like a colorful, like a Hawaiian shirt. And he's standing at the desk talking to the guy. And I don't know why I just looked up. I think I heard something. And I look, and he's just got the biggest stream of pee running down his leg onto the floor. And he looks and he shakes his head. He's like, oh, well. And he just stays and keeps talking to him. He never acknowledged that he just
peed all right,
peed all over the floor.
And you're just like, okay, well.
You should observe
Casual.
people. Crazy things happen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Indeed.
All day long, people do things like this, and we're not even aware.
It's a wild world.
That was a fun game.
When I was like, give me another, I didn't think it was going to be about that.
You always have to be ready.
I guess so.
It could be anything.
Guess so.
I think classic question. Most embarrassing moment.
When I was in probably high school, I was in a youth choir at my church, and every summer we went on a little tour.
Okay.
And we'd sing at different churches and stuff. But it was a big trip that we took every summer. It was like a week. And I saw actually the majority of every state in the U.S. through doing this choir tour every single year, because we went to a different area every year. So I've been to much of the U.S. through that experience year after year. Well, one year we went to Colorado. It was like our main West Coast jaunt.
That's not really on the coast.
Yeah, but it was in that same trip. We did go to California.
Okay.
But it was, I think it was that trip. Anyway, we go to Colorado, and we go, this trip in particular was embarrassing because I had many instances that I said something stupid, just really dumb, that people were like, you should know this. What is wrong with you? And I've always been kind of gullible, to be completely fair. But this one particular instance, and this isn't like the world's most embarrassing thing, but I had started taking French in high school, and I was real proud of myself. Well, we go to Pikes Peak Ever been to Pikes Peak?
Yes, it's cool.
You take this like gondola thing
Yeah.
up to the top, and me and three of my friends were sitting in a little car from my little friends from choir with these foreigners traveling from another land, right? And they were European and they were from the UK.
You had your big moment.
And when I discovered, because I mean, sheltered, live in Panama City, not many experiences with European or any other culture other than like Southern America, I discovered that these people are British. And I go, oh my gosh, I'm taking French in high school. And they look at me like, is there a point to this, little girl?
Did you start speaking French too?
And my
then?
friend was like, Shelby, they speak English in England. And I was like, oh.
It's kind of like the, you know, the friend or family member, like you go to somewhere foreign country, or even
Yes.
just go to a different place and someone doesn't, even in the States, and someone doesn't speak the language, and you know they're like, Carlos, say something in Spanish. No, I mean just say something, like say, hey, how are you? Yeah. And I'm like, how do I get a latte? And you, how do I get a latte? It's the classic American way.
Like,
just say it louder, they'll get it. Louder and slower. It's the dumbest thing, right? That's why
Yeah.
we're known as dumb Americans. You help
Yeah, well, you're welcome.
put that anchor in the sand.
I just helped a little bit more, but it was pretty embarrassing. And then at the end of choir tour, we always had this like homecoming show at our home church, and there was a big dinner like afterwards, and they'd give out awards to every member of the choir, and it was always tethered to something kind of usually funny or specific that happened to that person on the trip. So of course mine was like the Dum Dum Award.
And listen, choir people are
saying
their own
dumb
breed.
stuff, and so it just kept going.
Oh my gosh, so you got the Dum Dum Award.
I don't remember what they called it, but yes, it was.
Wow.
Oh my gosh, I'm taking French in high school. They were like, what? They were literally like, we don't speak French. Hello.
So good.
So,
Okay, I got one more question for you.
okay.
You have to pick one child and one child only.
Oh my gosh.
I know the answer. If you don't know it, you're in big trouble.
Of which child am I picking?
Yeah.
I love that you say that you know the answer.
Uh-huh.
Why is this like a trick question?
It's just a question. You get one child.
For what? What do I get them for?
You just one child. You keep one child.
I only get to keep one of them.
Yeah.
I can't pick between my children.
You want to know the answer?
There is no answer.
Tanner.
Tanner.
Hey, Tanner's gonna love that, and he's gonna love me for it. He's the one child you keep. The other three are gonna grow up and go off on their own. That was a trick question.
I do still have to take care of him. He was in LA for like 48 hours. I'll tell the story. And this was a couple weeks ago. He was out there for this conference, and I knew when his flight, when he had kind of briefly told me when he needed to either leave to go to the airport or be at the airport. It was like 5:30 in the morning. He's staying in downtown LA.
Oof.
Blech, I know. And he had been out
Actually, like
pretty
parts
late
of
the
it.
night before and had this really early wake up call. And so I don't know if he set his alarm, didn't set his alarm. Either way, I wake up Sunday morning and I I look on Find Friends on my phone, and it's like 7:30 my time, which is 5:30 in LA, and he's still at the hotel. And I was like, well, maybe he's about to leave. He's about to get the Uber, right? So I like get up, I take a shower, I'm starting to kind of get ready for the morning, and I'm kind of keep poking into the Find Friends app, and he's still there. So I text him, and he has his notifications turned off, right? But you know how you can notify anyway? It's very rude, but you know how you can do that.
Yeah, you can push it.
And so I hit it, but I know it's barely going to do anything but make his phone buzz because I'm sure that his ringer's off. And so I do this a couple times. Then I start to call him. Maybe if it buzzes enough in the ringer, I don't know if it's going to go through anyway. And so I'm like, he is still there. Now I know what time his flight leaves. His flight left at, I don't even remember. He had not enough time to get to his flight. And so I'm trying to figure out, like, he's going to miss his flight. I know he's still asleep, which is actually unlike him. But I just know things, okay, about him. And so I'm like, how do I get in contact with somebody else who can go wake him up? Well, I know what hotel he's staying at. And randomly, I know the hotel number or the room number that he's in. All of a sudden, I get the idea. I'm going to call the hotel. So I call the hotel. I'm literally like making eggs for my kids. I'm pushing eggs around a pan, calling the hotel. I'm like, hey, my husband is staying in this room. Could you please like call him? I'm pretty sure he's asleep. He needs to get up and make his flight. And he goes, I'll just patch you through. So he puts my call through to the actual landline phone inside of a hotel room. Thank God these still exist, actually. And he answers it after a couple of rings, and he is so out of it. I'm like, gosh. Hey, it's me. Wakey, you need to be at the airport now. And he looks at the clock, and he's like, oh my gosh. And he had like less than an hour to make his flight, and he was still at his hotel. And he made it, miraculously. He made his flight. But I was like,
good for you.
I kind of was like, you still need me even from 2,000 miles away. So he's a little bit like one of my kids, right? He's not.
Yeah.
He's a very fully functional adult. He can take care of himself, but he needed me. And I'm an Enneagram 2, and that is my toxic trait. Needing to be needed.
Yeah. So. Well, he's lucky to have you, as are we. It's been fantastic talking to you.
Thanks.
Today, and to have you all with us on the Vocal Lab podcast. So we'll do another one next week.
See you next week.
Thanks for tuning in to the Vocal Lab podcast. Ready to join the top ranks of the music industry? Don't forget to follow and subscribe for more first-class conversations that make the extraordinary your new ordinary. Until next time, keep striving for your top note.